right is the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Center, built in the 1990s. Fujikawa and Johnson are the architects. Now they had an interesting dilemma. They were building a trading center. Trading centers need to be free and clear of walls and columns. And that 11th story in the box is the trading center, right? So what they did was they built it between two 40-story buildings. So that 11-story box is actually sandwiched in. There's no steel support column, which is pretty incredible that they were able to come up with that design. The Civic Opera Building, built in 1929. Any opera singers on board? Wanted to announce it? I can't do it, but 1929, this is an Art Deco building with some French Renaissance designs on the outside. The building is shaped like a big chair, like a giant throne, right? The center right here where there's no windows, that's the theater. This is the second largest opera house in the nation. It holds over 3,500 people in this opera house. The largest is the one in New York, the Met in New York. So now you have 1929 right next to 2021, across from 1990s. I mean, that's what makes Chicago so beautiful, is that we just keep adding to some of our older architecture and make it, even more beautiful. The building next to us is the newest building on our river, the newest complete building on our river, complete in 2021. Gesh and Partners are the architect. They're the same architect that did the building that looks like it's built upside down on your left, right? So when they did that one, it was kind of almost paying an honor to that building's design. They're really good about building buildings on odd-sized pieces of property, because the property we just passed was actually larger on the south side than the north side. So they were able to build a building and capture all the space. The red brick building on your right, built in 1912, it's the Great Lakes building. Other than being old, I'm not going to talk about the building, but I want to talk about the spot, because this is a very historic spot here in Chicago. Before this building was built, in 1860, we held the Republican National Convention here. This is where we nominated the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. Right? In back of this building is where we had our first hotel. In 1833, it was called the Saguenash Hotel. That's where it was built. Our first post office, right here. So where you see that limestone box with those lampposts right next to it, that's where the first post office in 1833 was located. We're now passing the Riverwalk, built in 2016. All these chairs that everybody's sitting on, the city brings them out, so it's first come, first serve. So if you just want to come out here and kind of just hang out, you don't rent them, it's all free. Our Riverwalk, we now have the ability to walk from where Abraham Lincoln was nominated all the way to Lake Michigan without ever having to go up on the upper level. We are heading back, so if anybody does need to use the restroom before we dock, this would be your time to use it, because otherwise we'll be docking in just about 10 more minutes. Right across or above the Riverwalk, the building that curves, contextually or architecturally, that's called contextualism. So anything that bends or forms with the land, that style of architecture is contextualism. This one happens to form and bend with the river. Cohn, Pedersen, and Fox are the architects. Same architects that did the building right next to it. The inspiration for that building were our 38 Bascule-Trunnion bridges. So once we pass underneath this bridge, look back up to that building, and up on top you're going to see a bridge built. So it's built between the two towers which represent our bridge houses. So you can see the bridge built right there. So that was kind of the inspiration, were our 38 bridges. This area is called the Fish Hotel. If you look to your right, you can see that gray box. That gray box has 28 digital cameras inside. Every night at 9 o'clock and 9:30, we display the world's largest digital show onto the Merchandise Mart. onto that 2.5-acre canvas. It's all free. So come down to the, this area again is called the Fish Hotel. This is where they catch and release. So this is where you can go fishing on our river walk, but it's all catch and release. Again, it's 9 or 9:30 every night, and you can see the show. You can see this from a couple of blocks away. It's rather large, right? So even if you're sitting at the Adirondacks chairs over there and watching it, you just can't hear the music unless you're right down here by the Fish Hotel. The awnings underneath our bridges, architecturally they're called eyelashes. So that's the architectural term. They also protect us from any debris as we walk under the bridges. And the best example of a building married together 60 years apart is on your right. So on the left side of the building is the neoclassic style, built in the 1920s. And on the right is a postmodern interpretation of that neoclassic style done by different architects. They ended up putting a single roof up. So you have 1920s on the left, 1980s on the right. And truly, it's the best example of a building kind of married together, 60 years apart. Right now, we are in back of our water taxi. Wendella has a water taxi that operates on the weekends and on the holidays. So that yellow water taxi is just going to be docking into the river walk in just a moment. So we're just kind of, that's why we're kind of slowly going behind it right now. That water taxi, if you're interested in going to down towards Chinatown, you can go onto that water taxi. It'll take you towards Chinatown by the park right there. That's there, Pington Park. We are now entering part of the river walk that we call the theater. This is also where one of the worst maritime disasters happened in 1915, right here. The boat never left the dock. The boat was called the Eastland. They were heading on a company picnic up to Michigan City. The boat held over 2,000 people at that time. This is 1915. It was docked right here. The boat started to list, right? Started to kind of bend over. The captain tried to compensate by adding more water to kind of straighten it out. Well, the boat ended up listing for its final time right on its side, right here in the dock. 844 people died before they even ever left. That was in 1915. So this is the site where the worst maritime disaster happened right here. There's a little bit more you can read up on it. There's a placard right at the top of the staircase there. On your right, that glass, steel, and granite building, Ricardo Bofill is the architect. He was very inspired by the classical European architecture. So if you look at the building, he did a modern version. So at the bottom and throughout the center is the Roman influence. And then on top is the Greek influence. So you can see the Greek pediment that he had built at the top of that building. And now I want you guys to look straight ahead. There's a tall green building with a gold top. That's the Carbide and Carbon building built in 1928. The Burnham brothers are the architect. The inspiration, a champagne bottle. It was something that they drank, yeah. That was during Prohibition when they were designing it. We also had a daredevil named Nick Wallenda that came here in the year 2014. He decided to put a tightrope from the top of the Leo Burnett building to the top of Marina Tower West and walk across. This is November 2014, freezing cold, windy. It's crazy, but that's what daredevils do. He did make it, and then he went from the West Tower to the East Tower blindfolded. That's what they do, I guess. Who knows? That's what daredevils do. You guys remember what the awnings are called underneath our bridges? Eyelashes. On your right, if you look up, there's a building that looks a little bit like a wedding cake. That's the Jewelers building. It's the one with the cupola on top and the Tempe-80s around the center. That's a neoclassic design. When that building was built, it was built with a security system for the merchants. The merchants were diamond merchants. So they built an elevator for their cars. They would literally drive into that building in 1926 with their cars, and the elevator would take them and their cars up to their floor. Has anybody watched the Dark Knight movie? In the Dark Knight movie, there was a scene that Bruce Wayne was doing a benefit for Harvey Dent, and the Joker breaks in, right, and throws the girlfriend out of the party. That's where they filmed it, right underneath the Royal Sonesta sign. Chicago is Gotham City. We are. The jeweler building that we just passed was the courthouse in Gotham City where they tried Joe Chill. Our old Chicago post office was where they filmed the bank robbery scene. Our Chicago Board of Trade is Wayne Enterprises, right? We're Gotham City, just to let everybody know. All right, we are going to be docking back to where we started from in just a couple of moments. I am going to give you some trivia. So Chicago has 4 red stars on our flag, and they all mean something. The first red star stands for Fort Dearborn. So that area right there, the first red star, Fort Dearborn. The second red star is the Great Chicago Fire. The third red star is the 1893 World Columbian Exposition, the World Fair of 1893. And the fourth red star is the 1933 Century of Progress World Fair. Easy to remember, right? Fort, Fire, Fair, Fair. Way easier, right? The 2 blue stripes, one for the lake, one for the river, and the 3 white stripes are our territories. So you have the south side of Chicago, the north side of Chicago, and the west side of Chicago. That's our Chicago flag. This is a fun question that I'm going to ask you guys, because this is good to talk about over lunch or dinner or whatever you're going to do. Before the Chicago hot dog was named the Chicago hot dog, it was called this. Does anybody know what it was called before it was the Chicago hot dog? Not a hand. It's pretty hard. It was the Depression sandwich. So in the Great Depression, the only thing people could afford back then, most of the workers and stuff, were these 5-cent hot dogs. But we wanted it to be more nutritious. So we started playing around with vegetables, right? And putting all kinds of things on top. And that's what created the Chicago hot dog. But it was first called the Depression sandwich. All right, so we're going to be turning the boat around here. If everybody would just remain seated, or at least hold on to something while we're docking the boat. You guys learn a lot in these last 45 minutes, right? It's a lot of stuff in 45 minutes, thank you. This city is beautiful. I mean, it's easy enough to talk about. It's a beautiful city. Hopefully you'll all have an opportunity to walk around, look at some of the buildings closer, right? I mean, I can describe them from afar, but really when you get closer to the buildings is when you see some of the beauty of all of them, especially some of the older buildings as well. All right, so as we're docking, let me just thank everybody for choosing Windella on July 4th for this 45-minute river experience. My name is Lori. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to make the first one off the boat. All of you guys sitting right here, you might want to stand a little bit. Well, no, sit first until we dock, and then I'm going to have you move because we're going to move the door right behind you. But not yet. I'll let you know when. All right, so I'm going to try to be the first one off the boat just in case anybody has any more questions. And just to thank you. And with that, happy 4th of July. Thank you again. I'm going to mic drop, so thank you. Thank you. Thank you.